Hey everyone, welcome back to Kali Plants. It's me again, Mark. Today we're back at our location here at the house, but we're not going to be recording at the greenhouse at the moment because it's very hot outside. And in my last greenhouse tour, I highlighted a lot of my succulents, but we ran out of time on that video because it was already getting too long. So now I think I wanted to highlight some of our outdoor succulents, some of the succulents that we have growing outside on our rain or shine location. I will be giving you some tips on how to make your succulents grow that way, how to prepare your succulents for a rain or shine location, and also later on this video we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of rain or shine setups for your succulents, because some other people don't want to do that. Some people actually avoid putting their succulents in the rain. So hopefully this video will give you some insight on whether you should do it, okay, help you with your decision making if you should put your succulents in rain or shine locations. But first, let's just talk about the succulents that we have. Okay, and I have my setup here of my peperomias, okay, some of my indoor plants. I'm actually placing them here outside because we're getting less sunlight here from the morning, okay. We're getting much more smaller amount of time with direct sun here in the morning outside. So if I put them inside, it will be very much shaded. It will be too shaded for them, so they will etiolate, and some of them are not performing well inside. So I'm putting them here outside, and they're doing particularly well. I'm just not putting them on their stand because they're getting blown by the wind. So that is not our rain or shine succulents. But this one, the portulaca that we have here, is another one of my rain or shine succulents. You can see the variegated portulacaria right there. And also we have our sedum. I think this one is blooming, sedum allantoides goldie. We got our sedum dendroidium. We got our lovely rose, okay, which is named Lovely Rose, Graptoberia. And we get our Graptopetalum paraguayense right here, which has already grown so much. We got an outdoor cactus that I won from a recent recent growing competition, and they gave me this cactus as an award, okay, because I got some consolation prize, I believe. And yeah, and it's been growing outside and it's been doing pretty well. I haven't seen it desiccating or shrinking too much. It used to have shrunk, but now it's continuously growing, so I'm thinking that it's already establishing already in this pot. We got this green echeveria. We got our Myrinae. Is that correct? Okay, a Myrinae right there at the front. That is much more chubbier than my other Myrinae. That is the most beautiful looking Myrinae that currently is in my collection. So I have a lot, but this is not the entire collection of rain or shine succulents that I have here in my place. But yeah, I think that they're ones that will really suit nicely on our video. They fit. I made them fit in this frame. So I hope that you really like looking at them. So now, how are you gonna be preparing your succulents for rain or shine locations? What I would highly recommend is to establish them first before you put them outside. So if you have a greenhouse space or a protected area for succulents, and if you buy your succulents from very far places and you get them through the mail, through the box, and they're not rooted when they come, so I would recommend that you first establish them into their pots, into their potting mix before placing them outside. And what I also do with my succulents when I'm caring for them is I make them rain or shine. I put them in rain or shine locations once they are fully grown. Okay, once I have seen some growth on them, then I will place them outside. But if they're not yet growing and I'm not sure if they are established, if they are like rooted into their potting mix, I will not put them outside, because if they get rain, it will be too wet for them, and without those roots that will attach to their potting mix, that will absorb the water, they will be much more prone to rotting because they will not be drying out right away without their roots. So I would recommend that you root them up in their potting mix, let them establish first into their potting mix before you bring them outside. And to make sure that they are established, wait for them to produce new growth first before putting them outside. You can pretty much tell that your succulent is growing if they are producing much more cleaner leaves at the center of the rosette, okay, or if they are a Farina type of succulent, if they are producing more Farina at the heads of them, okay, that means that the plant is growing a little more. And then if you see that in your plant, then you can probably put it outside in a rain or shine location. Now, I would also recommend that you put your succulents outside during the spring time, or probably when the winter or when the rainy season. Some other people hate it when I say winter time in my videos because we don't have winter here in the Philippines. But yeah, once you're going outside that rainy season, once you're going into the more sunnier season, going into summer, that's the best time to place your succulents outside in rain or shine locations because they will already be established, and when the summer comes, they already have roots inside their potting mix so that they won't get sunburned too much. But if you put them late into summer and going into the rainy season, which will be getting very heavily rainy, and then they don't have a lot of sunlight, then you will expect your succulents to etiolate a little bit before the summer comes, because if you put them outside in a rainy season during the winter time, they will usually etiolate. And you can only do this probably if you're living in a tropical country like I do, if you don't have any snow or any frost in your area, because in frosty areas, places which gets lower than 0 temperatures in Celsius, then that might not be the best thing for succulents because succulents are not frost tolerant plants. Okay, I would say most of the succulents that you're seeing here are not frost tolerant, but there are some frost tolerant varieties like the Opuntia and the Sempervivum. But if you're growing in a tropical country like I have, so you will probably have an idea on that, the rain or shine type of care for succulents. If you've been watching videos online of Ma'am Laura Eubanks, okay, on her channel, her company, her business is Design for Serenity. So they're making these outdoor gardening, outdoor landscape designs for their clients with succulents. So they're actually growing the succulents outside and they get very little rainfall on their area. So that's probably one other type of climate that you can grow succulents outside. If your neighbors are growing succulents outside, then you can probably do it. Now, let's just go on to the pros and cons, because I'm seeing these pros and cons recently right now with my rain or shine succulents. Actually, all of my rain or shine succulents are very new, so they haven't been like this for a very long time, and I'm just experiencing, okay, the effects of the seasons, of the changing seasons on these plants. And I think the first pro with growing succulents outside, this is what I observed recently, is that they get large in size. Okay, I've been growing succulents for about 3 years right now, and I've been growing them in pots ever since, and I'm actually always wondering how could I make my succulents large. And recently a commenter of ours here in the channel asked me the same question: can succulents grow very large in a tropical climate, in a tropical country like here in the Philippines? And what I can say now, what I can attest to with my rain or shine succulents, yes, they can grow into large sizes. You can see the ghost plant that we have here, the situation of these Paraguayans. Look at the size of this plant. It's very, very big, very, very large. There's a lot of leaves, and this used to be like a two-headed succulent, and now it has produced multiple heads that will just continuously grow. And this is growing here in my location, and it's not even in a very full sun location in my area. It's in a pretty partly shaded area, which is why you can see some etiolation on that, and the colors are not that bright, but they can survive outdoors. And yes, they grow larger if they are grown outdoors. I can say pretty much the same thing with my other succulents. Right here we got the lovely rose here, which is usually sold as small tiny succulents that look like roses, and though there are some here that haven't fully grown, I can see that a lot of the heads here have grown really, really large. So yeah, it's possible to grow large succulents outside. You can see here with this Echeveria gibiflora as well, it has retained its rosette shape pretty much intact. It's really, really beautiful. We get our Myrinae here, which is a small clamping type succulent. Now, clamping type succulents won't grow wide because they are clumping and they are small type succulents, but they can get very, very clumpy, which means they can have a lot of stems. And you can see here all the stems, all the heads that is on the plant. You can no longer see any stems, probably at the side where it's etiolating, but it looks like it's really, really full. So that's what you can expect when you're growing succulents outdoors. You can expect them to produce a lot more heads, much more bigger rosettes. Okay, you can see that, and they can also get much more thicker leaves when they are grown outside. And I'm actually surprised that a lot of my other succulents, which I have kept inside, which have these thin leaves, once I place them outside, they started getting fatter leaves. So that is one effect of a rain or shine location for succulents. Once they get rain, they can get very big very quickly. Now, the first con, I would say, the first disadvantage of growing outside is overgrowth and less farina. Okay, I have said before that some of your succulents will etiolate, especially if you don't have a full sun location. So you will see some of your succulents stretching a little bit because they get a lot of rain and they get a lot of water, so they are pushed to grow a lot more. So they can sometimes etiolate, and because of that overgrowth, they will also have less farina. And this is particularly much more evident or much more obvious if you're growing in a partially shaded location. You can see here on the Paraguayense that I have here, it doesn't have this thick farina. It has almost zero farina, and that is also another effect of the rain on succulents, because water usually rubs off the farina of the plants, so it won't have a lot of farina and it will not be as bright compared with your indoor succulents, which you are caring for and which you are bottom watering. Because if you bottom water your succulents and if they're not getting wet at the top of their leaves, and that means that the farina will not be rubbed off because you're only watering from the bottom. But if you're gonna be growing them outside where the rain comes from over them and then it just goes into the plant, it will usually rub off the farina. So that is one thing that you might think of a disadvantage. The second pro that I would say when it comes to growing succulents outdoors is that they will have less maintenance. They are not that attention craving or attention seeking plants once you grow them outside. Because when I am growing my succulents in the greenhouse, and in the first few months of growing succulents in the greenhouse, I actually was surprised with how much attention succulents needs. Because in the greenhouse, it is much more hotter and they don't get moisture from the rain. So you will have to water them manually. But if you're growing them outside, you will have almost zero maintenance on your succulents. You don't have to worry about them at all because you can just wait for the rain to come. And sometimes there are also some weeks where you get stretched amounts of days or extended period of days where there is no rain, but still you wouldn't worry about your succulents, because when the rain comes, once it rains really strongly, okay, you will see that your succulents will just push on more growth. So even if you don't water during the sunny days, you can still expect your succulents to grow, because you know that when the rain comes, they will just explode with growth. And that's what I can say really with my succulents. Even if they get dry for a little while, I don't water them right away. I just wait for the rain, and the rain continuously waters them and makes them grow a lot more, and I don't have to do a lot with these succulents really. With this Cryptopetalum paraguayense, you can probably see it. The leaves haven't been touched. I haven't been touching this plant a lot. Even if it's dry, I don't bother with it. I let the rain water it. I let it grow under the full sun and rain, and it just continuously grows. It just performs really well. So yeah, that's what you can expect with your succulents. You don't have to worry about them. Compared with your much more shaded or much more protected succulents, which you grow under like a greenhouse or under plastic, under covers, so you will have to water them manually. But if you're growing them in a rain or shine location, you don't have to bother a lot with them. Now, the second con or the second disadvantage, I would say, when it comes to growing them outside is there is a higher risk of rot and sunburn and physical damage on your plants. Because you can see here, this one, I found this earlier today, and it's just on the floor. It just dropped because of the weight of the plant that is much more heavier than the pot. And that is also the case with my other rain or shine location, other rain or shine succulents here, which are just outside, and I place them on top of a pedestal. So when the wind blows, they get toppled over, and I just find them some days on the ground. So that is the case when you're growing in a very windy location, and if you don't have the right spot to put them. But I know that if I just put a table outside, they will be much more better off. They will not have that trouble. So you might want to invest in some like racks that have protective like walls around the rocks so that the plant won't topple over. So yeah, you can probably invest in that if you're gonna grow them in rain or shine locations. And also there is a risk of damage when it comes to visitors, because sometimes some visitors will bring over their children, and some children really likes to push on things. Yeah, so that is a problem. Another problem I have here with my rain or shine succulents, sometimes a stray dog or a cat will get into the house and will bump into the plants. That just happens. And sometimes a chicken will also come here and just like jump on top of the plant and they get their claws all over the leaves, so that can also make some damage. So that is one thing that you have to be mindful of if you're gonna be growing them outside, if you have a lot of animal activity in your area. There is also the case with slugs, and there is also the case with caterpillars, because sometimes butterflies will like produce their eggs, will give birth to their eggs on your succulents, and sometimes you will not be able to look to find it. So when the caterpillars like come out of their eggs, they will eat on your plant, and sometimes if you don't have a very large plant, you will find that your succulent have been eaten almost thoroughly by the caterpillars. So that is one thing that you have to be mindful of. I think that is one maintenance you should look for when you're growing your succulents outdoors, because in the greenhouse that's not a very big concern for me, because there isn't a lot of animal activity in the greenhouse. But on my outdoor succulents, they are much more at risk on those insect damage, on those physical damage. Also, there are sometimes that succulents can get sunburned as well and can get rot. I have a Pseudium clavatum which I have been trying out in a rain or shine location, and it's been getting rot recently. So that will probably be a concern if you're not using the right type of potting mix, or if your succulent is not yet established enough. You can get rot because I think that's what happened with my Pseudium clavatum. It's not established yet, and I placed it outside and it just got rot. So yeah, that's one thing you can avoid if you establish your succulents first, and make sure that you're using the right type of potting mix. If you're gonna be growing them outside, I would recommend that you use a much more pumice heavy type of potting mix with your succulents compared to what you're using inside. Okay, you can add a little more pumice, but not too much. Don't place your succulents in pure pumice still. I would not recommend that. I would recommend that you still add more organic materials. And what I would say is, when your succulents get rain, and if they're in a potting mix that still has some organic materials, you can really say that their pot will just compact. Okay, their potting mix will just compact inside their pot. Okay, it will be very hard, it will be rocky, it will not be fluffy anymore compared to the potting mix that you're using indoors. But even if it gets compacted, I don't think that is a concern with the plant anymore, especially if you have some pumice in there, because once it dries up, it will just become fluffy again. So just use like a soilless type of potting mix. Don't use a lot of soil into their potting mix so that it won't compact too much, and just make sure that they are established first before you bring them outside, so that you can have reduced amounts of risk when it comes to rotting, so that you don't get rot too much. Okay, just make sure to use a much more fluffier type of potting mix. I would recommend a soilless potting mix, allulose compost, and pumice on your rain or shine succulents. Okay, now let's go on to the sunburn part. I think that is also the case if your succulent is not established. If it doesn't have a lot of roots, then they can get sunburned because they don't have enough resilience to withstand the sun. So yeah, I have a succulent arrangement here. I will probably show you in a B-roll. One of the echeverias right there, the Echeveria suyon, is getting sunburned, but the other succulents around it is not having that problem. So I think it's just a problem with the plant. Okay, some plants will get much more troubles in a rain or shine location. They won't tolerate it very well. So you can probably just replace the plant and try out different type of succulents on your rain or shine location. Probably I would recommend that you use much more cheaper varieties if you're gonna be trying it out before you go on with the more expensive ones, because they're easily replaceable. You can buy them again. Okay, so I would recommend that you use much more common varieties. The third advantage when growing succulents outside is you add more interest to your living space, to your area, to your house, to wherever you're growing them. Okay, here in my place, a lot of passerbys, when they walk by the house, they look at the succulents and they pause a little bit. And I think that is a nice thing to see people appreciating the gardening that you are doing, because they can see that your succulents are alive and they're growing in this rain or shine location, and they get impressed a little bit because not a lot of people have that ability to grow succulents outdoors. And I think that's one way that it gives me much more joy with growing succulents once I'm able to make them grow outside in a rain or shine location. And yeah, I think that is really one good advantage when it comes to growing outside, because if your succulents are only inside the greenhouse, not a lot of people will be walking into your greenhouse and will be looking at them, because some people are just shy. Even your visitors or your neighbors, they will not be poking around in your greenhouse. But once you grow them outside, they will be much more easily observed, and you as well. You have something to look at. Once you're sitting outside, once you're looking at your area, they look really nice. These succulents that are growing outside, they really add a lot of interest to your space. So I would recommend that really you add some form of arrangement or some form of setup of outdoor succulents. It will really improve the look of your house, and you will feel much more better because you are already growing succulents for their beauty and not just growing succulents just for the sake of keeping them alive. You're already using them to add more aesthetic, to add more beauty to your space. So I think that is a really nice thing to have once you're growing succulents outside. Now, the last con or the last disadvantage with growing rain or shine succulents is you have less attention, less time with them, okay? Because sometimes there is also a joy with growing succulents indoor in a controlled environment, or indoor, I don't mean indoor, I mean in a protected area, in a greenhouse. There is some joy into observing them, watching them grow, watching them improve, and really getting deep into the plant, getting like a really sharp eye on the plant, because once you're growing them inside the greenhouse in a protected space, you control everything, the watering, you control the sunlight, so you know when your succulent is growing because you're giving it a lot more attention. But that is no longer the case with rain or shine succulents. Once you let them at the mercy of the nature in the rain or shine location, you just let them grow and you don't really do a lot with them. So sometimes you will just look at them and you will say that, oh, that already has produced a lot of growth, but sometimes you will miss out on that growth because you're no longer observing the plant. You will just be surprised that one day you'll be looking at your plant, it's already just very big very quickly without your attention, without your care. So that is one probably how would I say this? It's probably a good and a bad thing at the same time, okay? Because sometimes we want to let our succulents grow in our care. We want to give them attention and we want to see them grow in our care. But once you're growing them outside, they will no longer be in your care. They will be at the mercy of the rain and shine, as I said before, rain or shine location. So yeah, you won't be observing them too much once you're growing them outside. You will just be looking at them from time to time. And just as I said before, once you're growing them in rain or shine locations, really you wouldn't want to mess with them anymore. You wouldn't want to water them in sunny like days or in weeks when there is no rain. You wouldn't want to water them because sometimes if it gets too hot, they will get rot if you water them and if it's too hot. So you really would just wait for the rain to water them. So that means that you won't be giving them much more attention compared with your more protected succulents. So I think that is probably a good and probably a bad thing at the same time. I wouldn't say that growing succulents outside should be like a hard and fast rule, like you should grow them just outside or you should just grow them in a protected space. I think that every collector of succulents really should make some space for rain or shine arrangements. I think that it would really improve their garden spaces. It would really improve their area, the area that they are growing, and it will really help them understand succulents a lot more if they're growing outside. So I don't think that you should only grow succulents outside and you should just only grow succulents in a protected space. I think you should try both, okay? There is not only one way of growing succulents. You can try different methods, and I think that it would also probably give you much more joy if you try everything, if you try them inside a protected space and outside, okay? I would highly recommend it. Okay, yeah, so I think that this video has been pretty loose, okay? But I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that you understood what I'm talking about, and I hope that you can have some time probably in your garden later to try out the methods that I have been talking about, to try out rain or shine arrangements in your space. Okay, we still have a lot of topics to talk about with succulents. I still have to make a lot of different classification of succulents, care tips for each variety, so please make sure to subscribe below, okay, and hit the thumbs up if you really like the tips that I shared in this video. And also you can share this video with your friends, with your fellow gardeners in your circle of friends. Okay, I hope that you can share it out so we can grow a little more here on that channel. But I think that's about it for this video, guys. I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.